When you open up our webpage, this is what you're going to land on. You have the option of logging in, or if you don't have an account, you can create one. We'll start off by creating an account so you can sign up using your credentials, and then if not, once you create an account or if you already had one, you also have the option to log in. Either way, you're going to end up at the recipe create page where you can put in all your info for your recipe that you're uploading, including an image upload. And then once you submit that, you'll also have the option to search recipes by a number of different categories, and you can input your text and hit submit, and then it'll give you a list of recipes that match your credentials that you looked for, with a list of recipes down below. You can click on any one of the recipes and it's going to bring you to a page with all the coordinating info for that recipe. And then also throughout the web page, you also have the option to click the log out and log out of your account, which will then bring you back to log in again.
So for the packages that we have used for this project, we use a number of different packages. So we use the bcrypt one to hash the password instead of storing it in the database as it is. So we're only saving the hashed passwords. And then we're also using a body parser, cookie parser, like we did in all the previous labs, as well as we used Express to have our server up and running. And for the Express handlebars, we use that so we can manipulate the data that is received and displayed for the user. And then for the formable and FS, we were trying different ways to upload a photo, but we ended up not using them. And then the next one, we used MongoDB for obvious reasons. And then back again to the photo upload, we found a solution by using Malter package. Basically, it allows us to give it the location where we want the photo to be stored, and also we can add the date and time when this photo was saved, and then we use UUID to give unique ID for each user and recipe. And then for the XSS, it's used to increase the security measurements for our projects.
Alright, so this is just an overview of all the deliverables and requirements for the website. So we went with uploading recipes by all these ingredients, and also in the same form you can upload a photo for the recipe. And also with this, the error testing for this would be done on client side, so checking to make sure everything's valid, and this would also apply to the login form and the create an account, that everything's valid, that you're entering valid text and everything. You can also go to search by recipes by ingredients, name, chef, and time. So this is just done by a drop-down menu, and then you can search the text, and the coordinating items will come into a list below. We also have the XSS security, where we took from the documentation online and created a function that strips the HTML heads from the text when we're uploading or entering it. We put comments for the recipes, ratings, and also you can add categories, for example, breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc., all done through dropdown. We also made a seed.js file that you would run before to populate the database with fake recipes and users as a starting point for the website. We also created the backgrounds and formatted the whole form with CSS, and then validated the HTML and CSS with Totally and HTML Validator.
So for the code walkthrough, I will first talk about the app.js, in which we simply set up and run our server at port 3000, along with some of the packages that we will be using in our project. The next thing I would like to talk about index.js, where we do most of the work. At the very top, we require all the packages that we will be using in this project. And then the very next thing we do is we set up the connection to Mongo database. And then the first route, the root one, we check if the user is authenticated or not. If the user is authenticated, then we redirect that user to the upload page. If not, we redirect the user to the login page. And in the login page, we do the very same process. If they are authenticated, we take them to the upload page. If not, we render the same page, the login page. And then the second route we have is the post login. In here, we check if the user has entered a valid username and password. If the username exists, then we grab that user from the database and we match the passwords, which is hashed anyway, with the password that was entered by the user. If they match, then we take them to the upload page. If not, then we throw an error message telling them what went wrong. And then the next route is the new user route. If the user goes to the new user page, if they are authenticated, then they will be taken to the upload page. If not, they will the new user page will be rendered. And then in the post request for new user, we do a couple of steps. First, we connect this page with a jQuery code. It's called newuser.js, in which we construct our user object, and before we send anything, we access or gather the value by accessing the .val property of the HTML tag, and then we do that by doing an AJAX request of type post to the same URL. So the next route that we have is the logout. We simply clear the cookie that we have and expire that cookie. Now, that was all the routes related to the users. The next ones will be about the recipe. So the first route we have is the upload, the .get upload. We simply check if the user is authenticated or not. If the user is authenticated, then we take them to that page. If not, we take them back to the new user page. And then the next route we have is the .post upload, and which is also connected to two files. The first one is called upload.handlebars, in which we construct the form, and the next file is the upload.js, in which first we construct the recipe object that will be saved in the database, and then we collect all the info that the user inputs, and then such as a recipe name, servings, and all the other information related to that recipe. And we do some error checking. For instance, if the user enters weird symbols like a question mark or something, then we will throw an alert telling them what's wrong. And then we collect the photo by using the package called Malter. Malter allows us to choose the path where we want to save the photo, and also we can append to the name the date and time when it was saved. And then once we got all of those info ready to be sent, we send that in this AJAX request of type post to the same URL, which is upload. And then one last point that we have to mention regarding the photo upload. We append the date and time for the file inclusion security measurements, I just had to mention that. And then the very last thing in this file is the request. And how we do the request is as follow. So the form has two values. The first one is the photo, and the second one is the object. And we append the object to this form. And then going back to the route, we access the file by using the .json function, and then accessing whatever is inside the rec.files, and then the 0th index. And then for the recipe object, we access it by doing json.parse and then do rec.body.object. And then we can simply append a unique ID and do any necessary steps to that recipe in order to be added to the database. The next route that we have is the .get search. Again, we do the cookie parser thing by checking if the user is authenticated or not, and then we do the same procedure as we did with the other routes. And then in post search, we check which category the user chooses to search by. Do they want to search by name, by ingredients, by chef, by time? And then based on that, we send the request. And also we do some error checking. For instance, if the user chooses to search by name and then they entered some weird symbols, we catch that error. And this file is also connected to a search.js file in which we do all the validations and we do the request and everything and everything to fulfill this request. And then the next route would be the .get recipe. Again, if a user wants to access this route, then they have two options. Or two options will happen. If they're logged in, they will be taken to the search page. If they're not, they will be taken to the login page. And then the next route is the .get recipe by ID. We simply check again if the user logged in or not. We do the same process again, and then we get that ID and then check if we have that recipe or not. If we have it, then we will display it to the user. If not, then we will throw an error message saying recipe doesn't. I have to go back to the search route again for a second, and just wanted to say that once the user chooses what category to search by, and then they hit submit, then list of recipes will be listed in front of the user. If no recipes are found in the database, then we will throw an error message saying no recipe found. And then now, when we go to the .get recipe by ID, the user is taken to this route basically only when there is a recipe by that ID. And we just simply list all the information related to this recipe, such as name, ingredients, photo, and etc. And then also in the same page, which is the next route, the router.patch recipe by ID, we again do the checking if the user logged in or not. Then if the user logged in, they can add a comment, only add a comment if they want it, and then hit submit. Or they can also rate the recipe. However, whenever they click the submit button, they have to have a comment. So they either can do a comment and rate, or only a comment in this route. That's pretty much it for all the routes that we have used in this project. Thank you for listening.